Welcome to Beacon of Creation, a weekly podcast on game design through the lens of Magic the Gathering. I'm Tim.
I am Platty People.
We got another of our challenge review episodes. These are always really fun. We give a bunch of parameters for the community to design a card for, and then we get a bunch of submissions and we talk about them on here. Our challenge was halfway there. We're halfway through the year, so we've got design a commander that has partner with and give it an existing ability word from Magic. We also throw in some bonus points just to get people started. My bonus point was Flavor Blasted. Give us a quick flavor synopsis of the partners along with your submission. And then the other bonus points were, whoa, living on a prayer. Give us some type of holy flavor, angel, cleric, life gain, resurrection, and so on. Did any partner commanders come to mind for you? What are you expecting to see with these partner with cards?
I think I'm expecting to see kind of a lot of hooks to latch onto, a lot of kind of open-ended things where maybe there's a typal call out, maybe there's something that's weirdly specific that you wouldn't expect to see in just the regular card pool that you'd really have to focus on. Maybe the other half would really kind of bring full circle. I think I'm looking for some more out there effects than your regular kind of commander pre-con face card.
Yeah, usually with like a custom commander, I'm hoping after I read that commander, I'm starting to deck build in my mind. Like, oh, I need specifically artifacts that cost more than 4 in this deck. Oh, I need as many lizards as I can get in a deck. Like a really clear picture of what the deck building plan is. With these partner with cards, we might have the opposite thing where we're like, well, we kind of know where we're starting to go, but we might not know everything. And maybe part of what we're doing here is making up with the other half. I think Caillou had a great example of this. There's a partner pair, and if you just read one half, Halden, Avid Arcanist, they play land cards and cast non-creature spells from among cards you have exiled that have fetch counters on them, blah, 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 blah. And there's no way to get fetch counters with this card. Halden himself, you just have to imagine how things get fetch counters on them in order for this card to make any sense. So maybe we'll see some really, really out there ones, and maybe some will stand alone. Partner with can still be fun if it's, 2 cards that have pretty self-contained themes, but just happen to go in the same deck.
We might also end up with just slightly clearer pictures too as well, because ability words as a mechanic, they're often going to tend to be like asking you to do something. They're going to kind of be a hoop that you have to jump through.
That's true.
Attack with these kind of creatures. Control this. Draw this. Play that. And so those are often going to be kind of maybe slightly clearer directions than something that's just got an activated ability that you then have to more implicitly build around.
Yeah, that's a really insightful. I've never thought about that. How like a lot of ability words are like when you do this, when you attack with this, when you have big creatures, when a land enters, that kind of stuff. Huh. All right, well, you want to read the first card for us?
Sure. Already challenging my pronunciation skills with this first one from Red Bay. I'm going to try Zaket, Priest of Scales. It's a Planeswalker, 4 mana, 2 black, red. And it's got a static ability, Ferocious, there's our ability word. Whenever you activate a loyalty ability of Zaket, Priest of Scales, if you control a creature with power 4 or greater, copy that ability. You may targets for the copy. +1, add black, red, so add 2 mana. Copy that, you're adding 4 mana. Definitely a good place to be. And then -3, return target dragon, lizard, snake, or Viashino card from your graveyard to the battlefield.
Whoa.
It gains haste until end of.
Whoa.
Now it only has 3 starting loyalty, so if you play this and use that immediately, that's it for the Planeswalker. That when copied by the static, that could create quite a board very quickly. And then we've got kind of our usual stuff at the bottom. Zaket can be your commander, and the crucial partner with Asipus, God of Tongues.
Oh. Wow, Asipus, God of Tongues. I thought this Planeswalker was cool already, but this is sort of hinting that the other half of the partner pair is even cooler.
A god.
Yeah. All right, so The plus one's a little like original Garrick-y, right? I got my 4 mana Planeswalker, and I can get 2 mana back from that if I want to just like deploy a removal spell or something like that. And then I've got a pretty good, I mean, I guess it's
Yes.
tribe limited, but it's a pretty good -3 here. Bring a thing back and it stays back. Like this isn't an until end of turn kind of temporary.
I was waiting for the till end of turn or the
Yeah.
sacrifice or the exile or something.
Yeah. Maybe what I'm guessing, looking at Asipus here, I'm guessing maybe Asipus is like a snake, like an uncommon creature type, like a snake god or something like that. And
Yeah.
then maybe some of these other creature types here are for like compatibility to make it more fun in Commander. So how many snakes can you actually put in this deck? Not many. Okay, we'll let you also do lizards and Viashinos and dragons.
Snake really does tend to lean green with a little bit of black, and so I wonder if
Oh,
that expands the horizon a little bit.
you get an extra color in there. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. A black green snake god. That would make sense to
Mhm.
me.
Maybe it even has power 4 or greater.
Yeah. Before I really thought about how this might play out, I was looking at, oh, I can add some mana. Oh, I can raise dead. Those are cool. And like one-on-one, this is like, it seems like a quite powerful thing to be doing. But it didn't have that like explosive commander feeling. But thinking about getting 2 dragons back, 2 snakes back, 2 whatever's back, yeah, now we're starting to enter into like threatening the table a little bit, getting some pretty big things out there.
Yeah, I know you mentioned that the reanimation is type limited, but
Yeah.
how limiting is dragon as one of the options?
Yeah.
Get a gold span dragon back, get a not
Yeah.
thinking big enough for gold span dragon, but like ridiculous giant dragon.
What are the most EDHE giant dragons we can bring back? Oh, the ancient ones. So like ancient copper dragon, when you hit, get 1,000,000 treasures.
Oh yeah, there we go.
Hellkite tyrant, when it hits a player, gain control of all their artifacts. Yeah, that's pretty commandery. Lathless, whenever a non-token dragon enters the battlefield, get an extra 5/5 dragon. Okay, yeah, there's definitely enough big dragons. Kakusho is a commander classic. And then I guess the other thing is we're trying to figure out, is it going to be fun to do this compared to some other commanders? And I can imagine that too. I got to stock my graveyard with some dragons. I kind of need to maintain a power 4 creature on the battlefield, so my opponents have a little bit of room to control Zaket's power level. Like if people can keep my 4 power creature off the battlefield, then I only get 1 creature back. Yeah, I like the play of this card, even without seeing Aspis.
Yeah, and I also like how the +1, you're playing all these giant dragons in your deck. So even if you happen to draw them or the game goes on, you can still kind of have an out to put them on the battlefield normally as well, where it's not all in on a graveyard plan.
And I think the card's like all kind of really united. It's about having enough mana to cast your big dragons, and then when your dragons die, bringing them back. There aren't like other wrinkles to this card, which is good for a partner. You don't want a partner to be like a complete toolbox.
And Planeswalkers can go kind of through the roof on complexity. This is kind of pointing just in one direction. It's very clean in that way as a partner.
Yeah, big fan of that. All right, next up, we've got Crypt Rat Submission. And I'm going to read the card first, and then they also gave us a little flavor blast. The card here is Thoughtwift Council, which is white, 2 mana for a 2/3. Partner with Verse of the Unspeakable. And then its ability is Battalion. Whenever you attack with 3 or more creatures, you may return a creature you control or a creature in your graveyard to its owner's hand. When you do, creatures you control gain indestructible until end of turn. All right, so this is kind of Battalion. Your creatures are indestructible, but with an extra little cost to it.
Yeah, you can't do it forever. Or if you do, like, you've got to invest some other resource at some point for it to be.
Yeah. So the cost here, I can either return a creature I control or a creature card in your graveyard. Okay, so that's like a reverse cost, right?
Yeah.
That's like a cost. Oh no, I have to draw a card. like Battalion kind of wants me to have like a bunch of medium size, not that expensive things so I can get a big enough board. And some of those things die, and so I can bring them back.
If you're actually doing this battalion thing, your creatures are going to stop dying at some point. Obviously, your opponent might interact. They all have indestructible. They're not dying on the swing.
Yeah, that is funny. I think we've had a Battalion get indestructible card before, but this also has like a little bit of value built into it. A little bit of white card draw, maybe, getting some creatures back. And then we've got this partner with. And both the names of these creatures are kind of wild. The one that we're looking at right now is the Thoughtweft Council. And then we've also got the Verse of the Unspeakable. So maybe I'll read Cryptbrast's little flavor thing here. The Kithkin of Lorwyn are uniquely gifted in sharing knowledge that cannot be communicated via words. An omen path to Kamigawa has them unraveling an ancient mystery, one with knowledge too vast for a single mind to hold. Oh, Verse of the Unspeakable. Unspeakable is like a strange creature from Kamigawa, right?
Yeah, wasn't it on like one of the blue flip sagas in Neo? Am I remembering that correctly?
Oh yeah. In Neo there was Behold the Unspeakable. And then in the original Kamigawa there were these three blue instants. If you cast all three, you got to free cast the Unspeakable.
Okay, very cool.
Yeah, it's like a fleshy bat creature, blue creature. I guess I would expect the Unspeakable to be blue, or Verse of the Unspeakable to be blue.
Maybe it almost turns into like an enters the battlefield value thing where you're bouncing creatures and replaying them. That's kind of at home at white blue. Could also maybe be some hints of hand size matters, of keeping your hand full just of cards, and the Neo card that involved the Unspeakable cared about number of cards in hand too. Highly speculative. That would be kind of a cool combo of white blue managing to thread the needle of cards in hand, maybe a more divisive theme, and not one I'd expect white in normally, but if you're going to do it, this is how I think you do it.
There's a thing you can run into in limited Commander where you just have a bunch of cards in hand and like you deploy some of them, but some of them, aren't that good because it's limited. And if I had this Thoughtweft Council and I'm just bringing back crappy creatures to my hand and then my commander actually like kind of enjoys me having a large hand, that actually could work pretty well in limited. You can only reasonably play a couple 5-drops into play, but if you could just store them in your hand and get a big benefit, maybe I can do that. I can make that happen. Fill my hand with junk.
I hope that's what they had in mind, just because that's a very bold, cool direction that I really would not have expected.
Yeah, I guess the Unspeakable, the original card was 9 mana, and Vision of the Unspeakable is like, 5 or 6. The Thoughtweft Council, the white card we're looking at, is a cheap white weenie, swarm card. But we're sort of thinking that the Vision should be, or the Verse of the Unspeakable, the other creature, should be big, which is also kind of a cool combination of, I've got a bunch of little weenies, and then I've also got a giant hammer in the command zone if I need it later.
Some flexibility of plan table. Our next card here from Just Nigel is Ira, Seraphic Banisher. 6 mana, 2 white, black for a legendary creature, Demon. And it partners with Ratia, Infernal Restorer. It's got flying and ward 2. It's a 4/4. And our ability word here is Tempting Offer. Ira, Seraphic Banisher, enters the battlefield, exile target permanent. Each opponent may exile target permanent, or each opponent who does, exile target permanent. We are vindicating our opponents here over and over and over again.
Yeah, so when it enters, each opponent may exile a target, and then for each of those, exile a permanent. So if I have 3 opponents and they all exile something, I then get to shoot 3 laser beams. If you're the person who's in the lead, maybe you don't exile something, which also takes away a exile from Ira here. Yeah,
Yeah.
this is like a targeted board wipe, but you only choose like a portion of the targets. Like the six worst things on the battlefield get exiled.
Yeah, I'm curious here with the each opponent may exile target permanent. Like how much flexibility is intended there? Where are you forced to kind of pick
Hmm.
kind of one thing from each, and then those each of your opponents are kind of making a decision if they want to get rid of the thing you picked, and then you
Hmm.
get another choice, or are you loading up all the targets wherever you want, maybe at the person in the lead, but then kind of each opponent is in charge of making the decision on one of them?
Hmm.
Be curious to think about resolving this and who makes what decision and who and how much of this is you're picking the targets and how much of this is your opponents are kind of picking the targets. It's
Yeah, yeah.
interesting to ponder.
Yeah. And I would have thought like, hey, I think we've even seen like a demon angel partner with pair before
Uh,
in Battle Bond. They're like we've got a black demon that like sacrifices a bunch of things, and then we've got a white angel that creates a bunch of tokens, basically. So here
yeah.
we're not sacrificing things; we're just like absolutely destroying, like exiling everything. We've got absolute mayhem on the battlefield. And then Gracia, Infernal Restorer. I guess Infernal Restorer implies it's maybe also a demon.
Yeah, and our flavor blurb here talks about how this character and their partner, their souls have been twixt, and so that evil has unforeseen good consequences, and that good maybe has unforeseen bad consequences. So maybe it's just nasty effects all around.
Uh, I guess like yeah, maybe if the demon is just cleaning up the board, then the other side, the holy side, is adding a ton of stuff to the board, which may or may not be good for everybody.
Yeah, that would make sense of kind of maybe you get an angel and then everyone else can get an angel, but then you get another angel for everyone who does that. For Gracia.
But this card compared to the two that we've already looked at,
Yeah.
Ira here, the first half, this demon card that we're looking at that exiles a bunch of stuff. There's not a ton of build around for this. This is just sort of like a board wipey commander. Um,
Yeah, just like top rate, best in class 6 mana spell.
I, I mentioned this at the beginning of the pod, but I'm sort of thinking of the Halden scale that we talked about earlier, the commander who does absolutely nothing without their partner. And then we've got kind of generic standalone cards on the other side. This one's maybe, I guess it does something on its own, but it's a little higher on that Halden scale because in order for this to be a satisfying partner pair, I need that other card to like do something cool with what this card does.
And I guess the easiest path, is what you had mentioned earlier of caring about exile in some way.
Mm-hmm.
Stealing the cards or scaling in size based on how much stuff your opponents have exiled. That's a little Eldrazi-y. I would be surprised to see that here, but that could be a cool reflavor.
Yeah, I guess it might not have to like bring things back from exile, but it could just count exile, and that could be something that you start to build towards. Because then you could use things that like exile creatures or exile chunks of your opponent's library or um, exile a graveyard or whatever, so that my opponents now have like 15 cards in exile, and now I get 15 1/1s because of that or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, there's a path for this to be kind of built around it, but right now it's just a bomb going off in the game.
More speculative of where the path is than maybe some of the other entries so far.
Yeah. All right. Next up, we've got an entry from Cord, who was just on the last episode. Oh my God. I was in the podcast with Cord last week, and then immediately after Cord designed this card and said, I'm putting a lot of rules text on this, which is true. We've got PFEL, Fel Gwemhill, Sparked Alone. And it's 1 black white, 3 mana for a 3 loyalty planeswalker. Its +2 is Will of the Planeswalkers. Starting with you, each player votes for Planeswalk or Chaos. If Planeswalk gets more votes, Planeswalk. If Planeswalk gets more votes, Planeswalk. That's an interesting sentence.
Confirmed.
If Chaos gets more votes or the vote is tied, Chaos ensues. It has a +1. Put a wind-up counter on target creature or vehicle. Parentheses, it can't block when it attacks, exert it. And then -6. Each opponent loses life equal to the number of tapped creatures and or artifacts they control. And then it has some of the text like this planeswalker can be your commander, and it partners with Voda Gwemhill, Planebound.
Ah, already some story intrigue.
Yeah, there we go. So +2. This +2 is just sort of like gain some loyalty, and then stuff happens.
Yeah, that's like plane chase stuff.
Yeah.
That's what those actions are, right?
Yeah, Planeswalk is go to a new plane, and Chaos is like trigger the special ability of that plane. If players like the plane that they're on, they'll pick Chaos. If people don't like the plane that they're on, they'll pick Planeswalk. You, as the player playing Fel here, aren't gaining an advantage by doing this naturally, but based on what's on the board, you might actually get a big advantage from doing that if the plane is awful for you. You might be able to get off of a plane that stinks. But you do have another plus if that +2 isn't really relevant to you, and that's put a wind-up counter on target creature vehicle. This was a feature of one of the You Make the Packs that we did, where we build, a whole pack of cards, one card at a time, and wind up was this sort of mechanic in there that makes it's kind of like a cousin of Decayed. It can't block anymore, and in this case, it doesn't die when it attacks, it just exerts when it attacks, so it can only attack every other turn. There's some use to this. I can make my opponent's creature unable to block and not as good at attacking. It can't attack every turn. And then -6, each opponent loses life equal to the number of tapped creatures and or artifacts they control. I guess their creatures are going to be tapped more often because they have wind-up counters on them. And then, I don't know, people have artifacts in Commander and stuff like that. So, this could at least be a couple life. But it's going to take me a couple turns to get there.
Thankfully, it's not too slow to get there. So, like late in the game, if you cash this, I guess in Commander, 3 turn cycles is a lot. So that's fair. But it's not like a -8 where if it's on the board and you kind of blow forward it up, and the board is kind of clouded, everyone's just got a bunch of junk around. You have to at least think a little bit about the -6 coming in.
We also have a flavor one here, and then maybe we can guess what the other half of this partner pair is. As the ancient kingdom of Gwemhill fell, its 2 kings were separated by an infinite distance. Fel's spark ignited at the despair of losing his lovering kingdom. He was thrust into the multiverse, leaving his path home to the will of the planeswalkers he finds in the world beyond. Voda was left behind in the ruins of Gwemhill, alone, hated by the people, and seemingly deserted by his love. What could possibly bring these lovers back together? Separated by infinity. All right, so they didn't want to planeswalk, and they have to learn how to planeswalk better to get back home.
Yeah, and so that's interesting because that means that I would assume the partner here is not going to have anything to do with any plane chase mechanic. They're not planeswalking; they're stuck on one plane.
Yeah.
So if they're going to hook into this, it's going to be involved in caring about your opponent's tapped creatures, maybe a saboteur because your opponent's creatures are less likely to be able to block, be caring about artifacts in some way.
I have kind of an outside the box idea for what this other commander could do. So the other commander is just waiting for Fel to come back.
Yes.
What if what is Voda? Voda is the plane-bound one. What if Voda gets some bonus if you're on the plane of Gwemhill? So we need Fel to keep shuffling the deck until you can get back home.
Yes, and then Voda is just completely bonkers, takes over the game if you flip over that one perfect plane. That adds a lot of tension to the +2.
Yeah. We have some ability in Plane Chase because there's sort of the name. Like, Plane Chase cards have sort of 2 parts where we have Akum, which is like a place in Zendikar. That's the name of the plane card. But then it has a type, Plane Zendikar.
Oh.
You could have like 4 cards in the deck that are all plane Gwemhill, and then 4 different locations on that plane. So you could have like a 4 in 20 chance to get home. That might be fun enough.
Yeah, you can, knowing that you can stack the deck a little bit. I guess maybe Voda doesn't get to be completely out of control when you do flip a
Hmm.
Gwem Hill, but that would be very cool. I would love to see something. Good idea.
uh, they feel alone, hated by the people, and deserted. If a character's role is to in the story is to be hated by the people, should it have something that's very threatening so that the table also hates them too? Maybe that would be fun.
You get back to Gwem Hill, and then you just become the arch enemy.
What would make that fun? Is it fun to just say like your creatures get +5/+5 as long as you're on blah blah blah? Like what kind of effect would be fun there?
Yeah, I was thinking. I don't know how fun this is, but I was going the other way of you kind of do an overwhelming splendor, and all your opponent's
Oh,
stuff is all.
hmm. Yeah, that's cool too. Yeah. Alrighty. Yeah. This definitely. Yeah, I'm looking for the other half to do something here to bring this card to life.
But I think the hooking in, figuring out how to make a plane bound person or about
Hmm.
kind of the planes. That's a very cool idea.
Yeah, their name is Plane Bound, so maybe we want to lean into that.
Okay. Our next option here, another planeswalker from Pat, and this time we have Ponderer. You've heard of the Wanderer. Here is the Ponderer. It is 2 and a blue for a 3 loyalty planeswalker, uncommon, kind of like the Wanderer's appearance in With the Spark. But rather than the Wanderer having no planeswalker types, the Ponderer has all planeswalker types. If you ever wanted a Olas, Sarkhan,
Hmm.
Lolth, this is your gal.
There we go.
So all planeswalker types. It partners with Kaido, Unstable Walker, so another Kaido in the future here as well. Metalcraft, as long as you control 3 or more artifacts. Whenever you would flip a coin, you may choose the result instead. And -1, create an orb token, which in this case is an artifact, kind of like our clues, food, blood, all that sort of stuff. Artifact with tap, add colorless, and this mana only to cast an instant or sorcery. A Power Stone variant here on this one.
Yeah. Power Stone variant. All right. What happens if I make 3 orbs? Like how excited am I? What's my Metalcraft do again here?
You get total control over coin-based randomness. Not dice-based random, only coin. Too bad Kaido isn't typically red, because I would love to be able to pick the coin flip result on invert polarity for Modern Horizons 3. That'd be a great coin flip control situation.
That's the you either counterspell or you gain control of the spell.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, so the Ponder is like an alternate dimension wanderer. So maybe our Kaito unstable walker. So maybe Kaito is the one with the spark that is all staticky and messed up. So maybe Kaito has this kind of unpredictable coin flippy ability.
That would make a lot of sense.
Kaito does have the kind of like plucky, impulsive anime protagonist vibe sometimes. So we could maybe dip into red if we need to. We could have a red Kaito in a different
True.
world.
This is alternate universe Kaito.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Doors open.
Why don't you give us a little bit of that flavor blast that we got as well?
Yes. So in our multiverse, to be a planeswalker should be gifted with unparalleled power and control. This is why the situation of the Wanderer we know and love, who could not control her planeswalking, was so strange. In another multiverse, the opposite is true. Planeswalking itself is unpredictable and a burden for all except one single planeswalker gifted with control over her spark. She goes by many names. She's known as Ponderer. Her childhood friend, Kaido Markov, sparked. Kaido was not quite as lucky. The Ponderer uses her scrying powers to keep Kaido safe, all the while trying to find a way for him and all other planeswalkers to control the spark.
Wow, Kaido Markov. We got Vampire Kaido.
I guess if,
All right.
if planeswalkers are spending a lot less time on any one given plane,
Oh, that's true. Kaido, I guess maybe this is supposed to be in a deck with like some other alternate universe planeswalkers that are all kind of goofy coin flippy stuff.
less.
I guess Kaido Markov, that gets us a little closer to Red Kaido.
Yes. The Voldarans are the red ones, but it's alternate universe. Alternate
That's
universe. The
true.
Markovs are
That's true.
not red, but anything can happen.
Creating an orb. An orb is, like you said, is kind of a Power Stone alternate. Taps for colors, but only to cast instants and sorceries. So I sort of have like, I need Metalcraft, so I need some artifacts. I need instants and sorceries. I need things that flip coins. Though I guess plenty of instants and sorceries can flip coins.
Yeah, that's true. I would think that would be where most of them are.
There's already a bunch of coin flippy commander stuff going on, but I don't think I've ever played against it, so I don't have a good sense of how that deck normally plays out.
Yeah. It's too bad that this is kind of flipping coins, because when I think of randomness and associated with planeswalkers, I am kind of, maybe it's just because of what we talked about, I am drawn back to Plane Chase and the Planar Die.
The planar
So
die.
this card I can't control that kind of randomness, and maybe that's for the better. If you could control planar die outcomes, maybe things get a little bit too boring and determined.
Yeah.
Interesting to kind of focus on coin flips here.
And there are a decent amount of coin flip cards out there, though a lot of these are really obscure. Maybe because I'm trying to rig the outcome. Yeah, flip a coin. If you win, take an extra turn. If you don't win, nothing happens. There's no if you lose section of that card.
That's a pretty good rate. I don't know what it costs, but every other turn, take an extra turn.
Yeah, sorcery, 3 mana. Yeah.
Oh, it's a sorcery. Okay.
Yeah. It's extra all in. Like you either get something great or absolutely nothing. You just put a card in the graveyard.
I will say the Ponderer having nothing to do with the spell Ponder is a bit surprising to me. Maybe that would be too obvious, but it even switched to blue instead of white, and so it's kind of begging for a little bit of look at the top 3 cards of your library and put them back action. I'm maybe hankering for that here. This is a cool design text-wise in it.
Yeah, this is more pondering the orb, the Saruman blue, the picture, the kind of meme picture.
Yes.
More than ponder the magic word.
Oh.
All right, next up from Sage Beads, we've got Phrasma, Heron Forlorn, Heron like the bird, 1 green white for a 2/2, legendary creature Angel Warlock, partner with Wintra, Crescentic Flight, I guess like a crescent. It has flying, so 3 mana 2/2 flyer. It has Coven. As long as you control 3 or more creatures with different powers, creatures you control have lifelink.
Well, that is not to be underestimated. That is powerful text.
Yeah, that is a good chunk of life there. Because if you have 3 creatures, well, you got 3 things with lifelink. This actually does feel like a traditional partner with card. It does some kind of okay things. You can see putting it on the battlefield, but then hopefully once you got the partner, then it goes nuclear. Then it's absolutely crazy.
Yeah, where you're just guaranteed to have Coven. It's like a 3/3 that makes a 1/1 immediately.
Creatures I control have lifelink. I kind of want a partner or something that lets me deal damage outside of just attacking, like a tap to deal damage, something like that, or like some sort of black thing that deal 2 damage to each opponent and you gain that much life or something.
Yeah. We've already got green here, and so if the angel pair, I would be surprised if it's also green-white. Green could be like fighting, biting, that kind of stuff would also be good with the Coven.
Absolutely, yeah. Wintra Crescentic Flight, so like crescent, I guess moon. The flights are basically the names of the groups of angels on Innistrad. Is that right?
I think so. I mean, I'm basing that almost entirely off the flavor blurb that Sage B cited up.
All right, maybe we'll dive into that. Born from the dawn times of Innistrad, there were 4 leaders of flight, bonded close enough to be sisters. One such sister, Sigarda, led the flight of herons. Their magic is said to ward humans against harm in life. However, one of the higher ranking members, Phrisma, didn't always see eye to eye on the way it was conducted. Phrisma believed that divine intervention wasn't as moral as letting humans give an input. Betraying her leader, she went out and made a pact with a stronger power, Wintra. By cursing her own soul, Phrisma was mentored by Wintra on the art of witchcraft. Phrisma and Wintra bonded over time, forming their own sisterly relationship in secret. What once was a transactional teaching formed into a tie between their souls. Woven together by their connection, they became bounded, one and the same.
Hopefully not quite bonded as Bracella, but
Oh, yeah, not quite as bonded as, fusing into an Eldrazi monstrosity. Yeah, that would be a little... This makes me kind of want to have, like, Wintra, the Wintra card, the missing card, juice up Phrisma in some way.
Yeah. Maybe one possible angle for Wintra could be like a veto Thorn of the Dusk Rose style text, where whenever you gain life, it loses that much life.
Yeah, if I have that kind of, like, whenever I gain life, opponents lose life. If I gain lifelink, when I hit, it's almost like I've got double strike, because I'm hitting, I'm gaining life, and then I'm draining some more. That could make sense, yeah. Cool art.
A great find on the art. Big agree there.
It's interesting to see. I don't know. A lot of the Coven cards, they're kind of wordy, but they do this thing like at the beginning of combat, if you have 3 creatures, if you have Coven, then gain lifelink until end of turn. Phrisma here is worded such that if you lose Coven in the middle of combat or whatever, you also lose lifelink immediately.
Mm-hmm. And maybe that's like a play design tweak where they'd try it both ways and kind of figure out what one makes sense for the ability.
You do get to save like 10 words by doing it this way, which is nice. All right, who's next?
We've got Wobbles with just Moby Dick, Whale of Legend, legendary creature whale. Even got kind of the old-timey art. I don't know what edition that is, or if it's an art of the whale. Who knows? It's 3 blue-red, so 5 mana for a 7/5 whale. It's got a couple of abilities. Terror from the Deep. When Moby Dick enters the battlefield, it fights up to 1 target creature an opponent controls. If that creature would die this turn, exile instead. There's no coming back from being eaten by Moby Dick. It's also got another ability, Breach. When Moby Dick deals damage, put it on top of its owner's library, then scry 3. So it doesn't get to stick around. It just comes in, chomps something, and then vanishes to being in the future. It also partners with, as would make sense with the reference, partners with Ahab, Obsessed Captain.
Yeah, so it enters, fights something, or it can fight something, fight up to 1 target creature. So you can decline to fight if you want. But if you do fight, it pops back into the library.
The Scry 3 lets you kind of conceal when you might draw it again.
Yeah, it's funny to put your commander into your library like that.
Because it keeps it cheaper.
That's true. Yeah, if I'm willing to draw it again, I can keep the price low. Moby Dick bit off Ahab's leg, I want to say. It's like where the stereotypical like pirate peg leg comes from, I think.
Okay, I have a very cursory understanding of anything that happens in the story.
I actually think I had like a little kid Moby Dick like illustrated book when I was a kid. And I have no idea how much of what I read as a kid is true to the original book.
It's interesting to have a partner with pair so directly adversarial.
Yeah. Yeah. Ahab's like probably a black creature, I would imagine, because he's like 100% focused. The whole goal is revenge. The whole goal is, I don't care what sailors I lose. I'm hunting down Moby Dick. That's all I care about. Oh, Wobbles actually gives us kind of a crazy flavor blast here. Call me Ishmael, some years ago, never mind how long precisely, having little or no money in my purse, and nothing particular to interest me on shore. I thought I would sail about a little and see the watery part of the world. It's just the first part of the book.
Probably.
It is a way I have of driving off the spleen and regulating the circulation. Whenever I find myself growing grim about the mouth, whenever it is a damp, drizzly November in my soul, whenever I find myself involuntarily pausing before coffin warehouses and bringing up the rear every funeral I meet, and especially whenever my hypos get such an upper hand of me that requires a strong moral principle to prevent me from deliberately stepping into the street and methodically knocking people's hats off, then I account it high time to get to sea as soon as I can. This is my substitute for a pistol and a ball. Holy cow. With a philosophical flourish, Cato throws himself upon his sword. I quietly take the ship. There's nothing surprising in this. If they but knew, almost all of them in their degree, sometime or another, cherished very nearly the same feelings towards the ocean with me. Whew.
Does Ahab get a bonus when he fights Moby Dick?
Well, Moby Dick has to fight a creature an opponent controls.
Oh, it can't even happen. Was Ahab the one that goes into your opponent's control, and we've got like a Zedru situation?
Yeah. There's Pursued Whale, which maybe can give us a hint.
Ooh.
When Pursued Whale enters the battlefield, each opponent creates a 1/1 red pirate creature token with this creature can't block, and creatures you control attack each combat if able. So Pursued Whale gives everyone else an Ahab when it enters.
So maybe this is following that pattern. Maybe this is doing something different with Ahab. Hard to say.
Yeah. This is yeah, Moby Dick right now is just sort of like a removal spell in the command zone that does some scrying. But then once we get Ahab, maybe we go over the top. We do something nuts.
Moby Dick takes a bite out of Ahab. You're just showered with value.
This is an out there submission.
All around.
Yeah. If whales are a weird creature, look at that weird. It's like a gigantic head and then like a tiny flappy mouth on the bottom. Why does it need such a giant head? I guess to headbutt other whales? I don't know. It's just such a crazy submission. And we got a couple more. Next up from Juliet, we've got Prua, Uplifter of the Lonely. White blue for a 2/2 flyer. Angel Wizard. It has Converge. Whenever you spend mana of a different color than you've spent this turn to cast a spell of mana value 1, draw a card. Woo! This is some rules text. That's partner with Yeala the Isolated. Roughly, the first thing I cast doesn't really matter, but I spend a color. Let's say I spend white. Then I'm going to spend another color to cast a 1 mana spell. And if I do that, I draw a card. So my future different color cantrippy cards draw me cards.
It's like they, as a unit, across several spells, have Converge.
Yeah. Which is kind of convergy, right? I'm triangulating. I cast this. Oh, it's not there. Oh, it's there. Oh, I'm getting closer. Oh, here's the third one.
Yeah. And so, given that we've got this Converge ability here, I would highly anticipate that Yala would be gun colors, would be red, green, or hopefully most of them. But I have the opportunity to kind of really go ham.
Yeah, we definitely want at least one new color off of Yala. But yeah, if we could jund it up. Yala the Isolated. I guess like isolated. Green is often isolated. Black can be isolated. Red, I guess, could even do that too. Yeah.
Yeah, Yala could make treasures. It could have kind of a micromancery type of effect. That would be a little surprising on a Jund colored card, but not out of the question. Maybe you could search out creatures, 1 mana creatures instead of and sorceries. That's not super isolated though.
If Yala cares about 1 mana creatures, now you have a mixture of 1 mana spells, 1 mana. Oh wait, Prua works with any kind of spell. Spell of mana value
Yeah.
1, so it actually does work with 1 mana creatures. Oh, 1 mana anything. All right, maybe I'll read this little flavor thing here. Cloistered in a hermitage, Yala dreams of being connected to the outside world, but is doomed to her lot in life by the confines and rules of the clergy. However, the clergy's rules can be supplanted by one whose holiness is without question. It is hard to be holier than an angel. Prua exploits this loophole to begin teaching secluded nuns like Yala that are isolated from both the outside world and from their judgmental fellow sisters of the Abbey. Who knows what heretofore suppressed or dormant talents can be fostered by an angelic sage? So Yala is a sad nun, and Prue is here to cheer them up.
That's interesting, because on one level, yeah, I want Iala to have a lot of colors to be able to really go to the max with the convergibility on Prua. On the other hand, I could see there being some sense to Iala herself being a one-man spell.
Oh.
Maybe she bounces herself or something, and so you can always you don't get the full breadth of going for 5 cards, but you can maybe always get 2. I don't know.
Maybe like a coward cleric.
Uh-huh.
It kind of removes itself from combat, or he bounces itself. Yeah, something like that. One kind of funny thing about Prua I'm looking at here: whenever you spend mana of a different color than you've spent this turn, I'm just trying to brew. I'm trying to figure out what's going to maximize Prua here. Normally, I might have to cast like 2 different spells to do this, but if I have like a filtering thing, 1 tap, add 1 mana of any color. I could spend blue, turn it into white, cast a 1 mana white spell, and get my card.
That's true. Because the spending doesn't care how it was spent.
How the first thing was
quirky.
spent, yeah.
That is definitely a divergence from Converge a little bit. Even needing to mind where your mana was allocated. Because on the other hand, if you spend the blue to do that filtering, still exhausted blue from the pool of ways to draw the card, even though blue, you didn't cast a 1 mana blue spell.
Yeah, one color, at least one color is always gone each turn. And it's how can you maximize the other colors to cantrip a ton.
You don't want to waste any colors needlessly on useless 2 and 3 mana spells. You want your new colors to always be going into the cheap one.
People have done like Luris in Commander, where all your permanents are like 2 or less.
Oh, very.
I guess often that means also the best Commander cards, the really cheap ones, the really efficient, powerful Sol Rings of the world. Yeah, Prua. Yeah, I don't think I can guess what Yala's colors are. I think Jund would obviously be the coolest, like, or the beefiest, because you have the most flexibility. But it doesn't feel like Yala has mastery of a lot of stuff. Yala is sort of
totally,
Though I guess it could be like maybe it's the off color activation thing, where maybe it's a white creature with off color, red or black or whatever.
That would be a way to have it both be 1 mana and still be massively permissive.
And the kind of flavor here is Yala's talents are not being recognized or not being activated, but maybe through some help here. Oh, now I can actually tap into the other colors that I'm capable of.
Yeah.
But to actually get 25, 30, 35 1 mana spells in your deck is pretty tough.
Yeah. Especially because X spells don't count. But kicker spells and spells like Spree do count. But then you're not doing the Chun-Li thing. That's because you want to just cast a bunch. But Rua here cares about the mana value, even if you happen to spend more mana to cast them.
So if I spend blue and then I spend blue-white, I'm still good. Oh, but that'd be 2 mana, so that's not going to happen.
It would have to be a spell that allowed you to do that, but that was still mana value 1. I think that would work.
Oh, like a spree card. Oh, yeah. Okay. You found the cheat code.
Like Runic Shot is like a card from Dominator United that's like with a blue kicker. Like, that would work.
I traded for a Final Showdown, one of the spree cards. I think this is maybe the famous one. It's a one white mana for an instant, but then it has 3 abilities, one of which is a board wipe. So
There we go.
So I can have my 1 mana value spell.
Yeah. It definitely got the gears turning for us today.
Yeah, I have very little guess as to what Iala's abilities are, which is kind of cool. I don't know. We've got kind of standalone one character and then another character that's going to maximize that in some crazy way.
All right, so moving on to our next card here. Xena, we have Yuntai, Beast's Damnation. Legendary creature, Demon Virus. Doesn't have a mana cost. That's a 1/1. Card text here, we've got Morbid. An activated ability associated with Morbid. 1 blue-black. Urge target creature with Yuntai on top. Activate only if Yuntai is in your hand or command zone, and only if a creature died this turn. And at the end of your turns, target creature you control, which isn't a copy of Yuntai, becomes a copy of Yuntai, except it's not legendary and doesn't have this ability. And it's got partner with Halcyon Willing Host. Favor blurb here implies that Yuntai here is maybe floating around Ikoria, which is maybe where some of the kind of the merging stuff is going.
It can't invade a plane without an initial host, so it sends out psychic energy that especially attracts the hateful. Okay. And then Kelsian, who I remember is like the experience counter commander. That's apparently the host here. It's 3 colors and cares about experience counter. So you get to put like 5 different experience counter cards in your deck if you play Kelsian.
Yeah.
Kelsian the Plague. All right. I did not know Kelsian's epithet, the Plague. Well, that fits very well with being a willing host for a plague.
Totally.
Kind of an intentional disease carrier so that you can really mess with other people. This is kind of a crazy effect. The main ability that quote unquote casts it isn't really a cast, but it's morbid. So when something dies, then I can do this thing. Maybe kind of like ninjutsu, except instead of an unblocked creature, it's a thing dying that allows me to then do this. And it's 1 blue-black, merge target creature with Yuntai on top. So when I merge onto a creature, I'm paying 3 mana to shrink that creature into a 1/1. And I think it would still have its other abilities, but it would just be a 1/1. And then at the end of your turn, target creature you control, which isn't a copy of Yuntai, becomes a copy of Yuntai, except it's not legendary, it doesn't have this ability. So I can turn my other creatures into 1/1s? Or I guess I'm turning my other creatures into the full stack.
Yeah. So there's still 1/1s, but maybe if you have some ability that is really appealing, you can kind of double up on that ability. That's one phase of this, and the other one, which is a departure from how mutate works, is, if I'm understanding the reminder text here correctly, intention here is that this could also maybe merge with your opponent's stuff. Gradually turn all your opponent's stuff into something crappy.
Oh, so if I mutate or if I merge onto my opponent's creature, they control Yuntai. And so therefore they're the one in this rules text saying at the end of your turn's target creature you control, blah, 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 blah. Oh, and that's why it has to say which isn't a copy of Yuntai, because that kind of like forces, if Yuntai's infected my opponent's one creature, they have to try to infect another creature if possible.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so I can...
You either want to do your best thing or their worst thing.
I guess like if I have Arcanus, which is like an old card that has tap, draw 3 cards. I can Yuntai my own Arcanus and then start turning my other creatures into Arcanus and then just have like a whole fleet of things that can tap to draw 3 cards. Maybe that's my deck building. I have like a couple of these great abilities. So if my opponents don't have anything cool to infect, I can infect my own stuff. But then if my opponent has some big creatures that I would like to be smaller, I can basically spread this like 1/1 disease among my opponent's creatures.
Yes.
If my opponent has like an elf deck, I infect one elf, and then because Yuntai is on top of that elf, it's no longer an elf, and also it's turning other things not into elves. So I can slow them down that way.
And it's going to double up because they become copies of this. Unless they can get rid of all of them at the same time, they're still going to be stuck doing this. And if multiple of them survive, more creatures are going to be infected each turn.
Yeah. Having removal as a commander, I mean, it's kind of like the demon that we had before. Like, I'm just here to blow up the table a little bit.
Yes.
I don't usually want to do that, but I guess this is better than just removal as a commander because it's also make a bunch of baby copies of my best tap ability. So it does have some proactive things in addition to being removal.
Yeah, and so maybe Kelsien is like an Arcanus, the omnipotent type card that it's really good to copy, or it pays off when your opponents have lots of other Unities in play. Could go a couple different directions.
Yeah, Kelsian's original card was like a pinger that like if it finishes things off, then like it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So you could imagine the new Kelsian still being a pinger, still tapping to deal damage.
Yes.
And then I get a bunch of those, and then it's sick. All right. Second to last one here is from Kern. Tahani, Careless Mimic. 2 white blue for a 2/3 flash flyer. 4 mana 2/3 flash flyer. It has imprint. When Tahani, Careless Mimic enters the battlefield, exile target non-creature spell an opponent controls and put a mimic counter on that card. Wait, what?
Ooh. We in fetch counterland here. Let's see.
When Tahani leaves the battlefield, you may cast a copy of any exiled card with a mimic counter on it without paying its mana costs. Oh no, it's not. We're not in fetch mode. It can use the mimic thing itself.
Totally functional.
It's sort of a flash creature that ETBs counters a non-creature spell, and then when it dies, you get to cast the spell that you countered.
And every time you do this, you build up a stable of possible options. So maybe first time you counter a Doomblade, and then you've got that option. And maybe second time you counter a draw spell.
Yeah.
And then the more this hits the battlefield, the more you get to do whichever one is most advantageous each time.
This is like the commander cousin of Spell Queller. Do you remember that card?
Yes. Yeah.
This 3 mana 2/3 flash flyer. When it enters the battlefield, exile a spell with converted mana cost 4 or less. When it leaves the battlefield, the owner gets to cast it. So Spell Queller was like, I'm going to delay that spell while I stay alive. Tahani's even better than that. Tahani's going to counter that spell and then also get to cast it itself later.
The whole table's going to live in fear the whole time, too, because Tahani is front and center, obvious in the command zone.
Yeah.
So Queller hides in the hand. You got to guess whether someone's got it or not. There is no mystery here. As soon as you've got 4 mana, the whole table's got to be like, divination, reckless impulse, what's going to happen? I don't know.
Yeah, I recently played a game where we resolved multiple copies of Truth or Dare, a playtest card that, long story short, forces people to play with their hands revealed for the rest of the game. So we had 2 blue players with revealed hands. Although entertaining, it was also a miserable gameplay experience. You kind of don't actually want to know the specific answers that everyone has in their hand. It just really brings the game to a halt. Tahani, it does cost 4 mana, so you have to you have to be paying a price to leave this up all the time. But it is the onboard trickiest of onboard tricks in terms of stopping non-creature spells, or off-board trick. I don't know what to call that. Zone bound trick.
Trick from beyond.
Yeah. you really, really, really cannot try to cast expensive non-creature spells while this is in the command zone.
Yep.
But commanders are creatures, so this doesn't stop the most obvious thing that people are doing in a game.
And it's not even just instants and sorceries. This is going to get enchantments, so you could get some crazy build around enchantment. You could get some kind of removal enchantment. You could get people's mana rocks if they haven't deployed them all yet. Those are all on the table here.
Yeah.
It's interesting to have this be a partner, just because this feels very complete as a package already. This is maybe one step above maybe Angel we had, where that one was, it does something, it points you in a direction, but you could see a world where another card really sends things in overdrive. This, for me, is a complete plan, and it by itself will define the game while it's on the table, and it's also got a partner.
We're talking about this onboard counterspell. I kind of want the other side, Iktome, Foolish Trickster, to not be flash. Like, make
Hopefully
me commit
not.
sometimes. Yeah.
Yes.
Make me commit to something. It's something that's on board that's going to generate value while it's on board.
You agree there.
And the flavor blast here, Tani is the Blue Jay spirit, is known for mimicry and trickery, though its unthinking carelessness has led to its own death and resurrection many times. Many times, wow. Iktome is the spider spirit, is a shapeshifter and trickster, and is sometimes a villain or helper, though, like Tahani, his foolishness often gets himself and others into trouble. So we might be sharing this mimic counter, which would be cool.
Yeah. Maybe Iktome puts mimic counters on creatures somehow. They kind of cover the whole swath. That's maybe almost a little too all-encompassing to get every possible card type single partner pair, but if it's a shapeshifter, that kind of gives me that vibe just on first pass.
Maybe Iktome could, when something dies, they get exiled, but they get exiled with mimic counters on them. Iktome can turn into anything that has died. And then when Tahani leaves the battlefield, you may cast a copy of any exiled card with a mimic counter on it without paying its mana cost. So that is compatible if there are some exiled mimicked creatures. Because I can cast a copy of a mimic creature. Okay. Yeah, that seems kind of cool. Kern also gave us like this cool cultural note, which is maybe a little too long to read on the podcast, but I encourage people to hop on the Discord and read up on. This is like a cultural thing. This is like a real thing.
Yes.
Yeah, like a little spider. Yeah, so maybe get some green, blue, maybe. I have a fondness for the half overlapped partner widths. Does that make sense? Like a blue-white and a blue-green.
I think that makes a ton of sense. Especially so it doesn't become 4-color soup mess that you still get a lot of room to play with.
Yeah, you're probably also right if you accuse me of just not wanting to play 4-color commanders. I just don't like playing 4-color mana bases in Commander. So maybe I just please just keep it to 3 colors.
A lot of math, and it's like there is a right way, and it works fine, I would imagine, with Commander and how long stuff has been around, that it's completely seamless to do 4 colors. But it's still, you got to think about it a lot harder.
Yeah, and you probably want the better lands, like the shock lands and triomes and stuff like that. And I don't want to either proxy or pay for those cards.
Yeah, totally.
A blue-green spider, that would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
We need a spider but Trixie. We'll make it blue. Okay.
I buy it.
Yeah. Yeah, this is cool. The onboardiness is a little high, but maybe it's cool. And if Iktomi's a really fun card, that's just going to be great. If it encourages me to be spending mana so that Tahani is, not just like a every turn threat to stop the biggest spell. I'm going to be happy. Maybe you just never cast Tahani, and then you're always threatening to stop big spells.
I can see it working out that way. I agree very, very hard.
All right, we got one last one. You want to read this one?
Let's do it. This is from Bradley Rose. It is It That Witch Cleans. A 2-mana 1/1 legendary creature Eldrazi cleric for 1 and a colorless mana. this quite a figure here of a humanoid, but with definitely the classic Eldritch Moon tentacles also present. Kind of pulpy horror name. I like that.
It That Which Cleans. That is a crazy name.
And after partnering, we have Sweep. When you cast It That Which Cleans, return any number of wastes you control to their owner's hand. Each waste returned this way, exile the top card of your library face down. This is a different ability now. Discard a wastes, add 2 mana in any combination of colors. Spend this mana only to cast your commander or to activate abilities of food. So the fabled 6th member of the Sweep cycle from Kamigawa block.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about hand size matters earlier, and the king of hand size matters is Saviors of Kamigawa.
I clean up the wastes.
It That Which Cleans. One serves dishes, the other washes them. So this is a dishwashing tentacle lady.
Yes, we've been given the dishwasher, and the chef is the mystery.
The maker of cuisines. I can return some wastes to their owner's hand. For each waste returned this way, exile the top card of your library face down. And then this commander gives no reason why that matters. Right?
Yes, so this is a fetch counter decision.
Yeah, this is deep on the Halden scale. Yeah. You got to imagine Bradley just looked at the list of ability words and was like, what's the 10 on the storm scale of ability words?
You found it. It's Sweep.
Sweep. When you cast it, it's Eldrazi, so it's a cast trigger, not an ETV trigger. You're going to sweep some wastes. Maybe you sweep 2 wastes. I reset myself 2 lands. But now I have those wastes in my hand, and I could kind of use them to generate mana. Add 2 mana of any combination of colors. Spend this mana only to cast your commander or activate abilities of food.
Definitely natural that the maker of cuisines would involve food in some way.
Yeah, the maker of cuisines making food. That totally makes sense, yeah.
And hopefully the maker of cuisines does not also cost colorless mana, because this ability right now cannot generate colorless mana. But I could easily see a world, depending on the cost of the maker of cuisines, if it's not literally like Emrakul size, where you play It That Which Cleans, discard 2 wastes from your hand, and just cast the other partner immediately.
Yeah, if I want to go all in, if I have a bunch of wastes in play, I can bounce them all, sweep them all. I can exchange them 2 for 1 for mana. So I bounce 4 wastes, get 8 mana, cast a giant commander, or cast my other commander and then eat a bunch of food. I guess maybe I'm guessing that the maker of cuisines somehow creates wastes or puts them into play or something whenever you eat food.
Or hopefully does something with the face down cards. That's what I'm looking for. Maker of cuisines of, is that how I get my value back? I've run down on lands, I've sent them to the graveyard, but then is there some way for me to then recoup that?
I started thinking like there's a commander that's pretty popular, Karametra, one of the Theros gods. And that's whenever you cast a creature spell, you can search your library for a forest or plains, put it into play. That's pretty shuffly, but is a very fun card to build around. And so if the maker of cuisines is somewhere in that zone where I am somehow getting wastes, maybe casting wastes out of my exiled cards, maybe whenever, it creates food somehow, and then whenever you eat food, then you're Karametraing. Because that would maybe plug into other food cards. That lets me stuff a bunch of food cards in my deck.
Yes.
We don't know what Maker of Cuisines does specifically, but we have so many weird open-ended hooks on It That Which Cleans that it gives us a set of requirements for the Maker of Cuisines. The Maker of Cuisines has to care about these face-down exiled cards. It pretty much has to generate food. It's got to do a couple things in order for this cleaner to matter.
It is fun to have a commander that specifically pushes you to play basic wastes. I don't know quite what the slate of Eldrazi stuff they've put out in the last couple of years is. I know they've really pushed that recently. I guess my thought is, if you're playing a colorless commander, one of the big gains of that is that your mana base is all utility lands that give you bonuses, like Radiant Fountains and Zalfrin Voids and those kind of things.
Yeah, yeah.
But this, on the other hand, is saying play wastes, and that is a wrinkle here, and that's a cool twist.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, is the Maker of Cuisines a colorful card or is it also colorless? Is kind of a question. If it's like got green or white, now I've got more food cards to pick from and I can have more fun with food. But I do start to have like that weirder mana base of basic wastes along with, green and white cards. If both halves are colorless, then you really need the Maker Cuisines to be able to pump out that food itself.
Yeah, you show up to the table and you're like, please let me rule 0. I have 5 golden eggs in here, but please, my deck doesn't work unless I have all 5 of my golden eggs.
Or we need golden egg, silver egg, bronze egg, wooden egg. We need to print out a whole colorless cycle. Would that even be a cycle? I don't know. Brad also gave us some info in the aftermath of Eldritch Moon, continuing even beyond Midnight Hunt and Crimson Vow. There remains much trauma among Innistrah's denizens and much hunger. One town's church priest has been Emrakul warped, losing some of the personality we once knew them to have. However, they retain their sense of duty of serving their community and has opened their doors for food and shelter. At dinner time every day, a chef from a local restaurant who befell a similar degree of fate as the priest devotes their time to making food to serve the church. The priest happily helps clean after the cooking is done. They both feel drawn to one another. Is it affection or the whispers of the blind eternities? Does it matter? Similar fiction does make me think maybe it's leaning colorless, but I could also see like a white creature, this like helpful chef, or a green creature.
Yeah, especially because the mana ability on it, that which cleans, does produce colored mana. That to me feels like the other commander probably has at least one color to it.
That's a great point.
And maybe doesn't have a colorless pip, so that the ability casts it without too much.
Yeah. Alrighty. We got a little mystery, but we kind of know what we need to do here. This card is so nutty. I mean, that is what we asked for. We wanted there to be mystery. We didn't want the cards to be all that standalone. And we got a lot of people delivering on that.
Yes. We got what we deserved.
Maybe we pick a favorite or two and then wrap up this episode.
Yeah, I think the standouts for me, the Ket of just being able to point in a simple, clear direction despite being a planeswalker, that was very cool. I really liked Phrisma as really kind of towing the line really nicely of being a functional card on its own, but also suggesting a lot of cool options for the partner. And I also liked Prua of just going in a weird kind of designer brainy mechanical direction, and that's a little bit of bait for people like us, but it worked.
Yeah. Prisma is probably the one that you could most mistake for a real card. The art, the kind of simplicity of it, all that kind of stuff really adds up together.
Mm-hmm.
If we had to pick one that we're going to design the other half of, maybe it has to be the Gwemhill one, the plane bound one. Maybe I fell in love with my own idea too much of we need to have planes matter on a creature.
I look forward to seeing the other half.
And maybe the Kithkin unspeakable one. We're gonna bounce a bunch of stuff to our hand, fill up our hand. We got a white weenie strategy with a giant blue creature on the top. Maybe I'd look forward to that too. But these are all crazy. I don't think there's a single card here that was like, this is boring. We got none of those. we got all stuff that does cool stuff. The end of one design challenge means we've got a brand new one. This one should be fun. For July, we've got 777 Jackpot. Design a fixing card using at least one mechanic that was first printed or previewed in 2024. We've got a couple bonus points along with that. Julius bonus point. Jewel Lie. Give it heist, flair, or flavor. Like a heist, like a casino heist or something like that. And then Platty's bonus points. July the 4th be with you. Put the number 4 on the cost or rules text of the card. Plotting a mana rock, that is kind of an interesting idea.
Hmm. I wonder if there's something to be done. Well, no, the thing from Duskmorn that was like you can cast something and it's not a creature for a couple turns.
Oh
I know
yeah,
one of the previewed cards already is kind of a fixing thing. I think it goes and search for a basic land. Maybe there's some other angles there done
impending.
where
Yeah,
yeah. I'm always like new. What's the new thing they've done? And that's where my mind went. Certainly lots of
yeah.
options.
Another new one that jumped out to me that might also get that heist flavor is from the Assassin's Creed set, free running.
Ah,
It's a mechanic where you can kind of cast things cheap or better if you hit with an assassin or commander. So
there
maybe you
we
got your
go.
free running mana rock or something. This doesn't have to be a mana rock. It's fixing is the main thing we're looking at. We're getting at the colors that we need, which could be a mana rock or could be something else. And then use a new mechanic, give it some heist flavor, get the number 4 on there. 4 mana rock, makes a 4/4 creature, something like that. And that'll be due July 26th. All right. And that's about it for our podcast for this week. Hop on the Discord. That's where all the action is. Thanks for jumping on again, Platty.
Yeah, always love reviewing out there cards. I was
Yeah.
certainly not disappointed this month with the entries.
Always a ton of creativity on these design challenges. You want to tell people about anything, any Revolution stuff?
Yeah, just that our Cyberos season is in full swing. We just had a new set rotate in
Oh, yeah.
that has a bunch of actually colorless mana pip cards. So if that's your thing, if you loved Oath of the Gatewatch, if you love Modern Horizons 3 Draft, we have got some cards for you over in Revolution. A lot of cool new planeswalkers to play with as well. Cyberos brought in 6, and I think they've all seen meaningful play already.
Wow.
So if you love casting planeswalkers, some people even tried Super Friends decks last month in the tournament. So if that's your thing, that hasn't really quite come together in Revolution before, we're trying it now. Come on, check us out at the Custom Magic Discord.
All right. If you need to find either of us, find us on Discord. I'm at Tim F. Riley, your Platty people. And thank you, everyone, for listening.